I had to make a career choice, and I had several options, and I agonized over this a lot. But one day, it just really hit me that I could not live without music, that it was, in fact, the thing that spoke to me most, and that it really energized me and filled me. I go back to the great statement made by Adolf Herseth, who for over 50 years was principal trumpet in the Chicago Symphony. And people ask him, "What is your favorite piece of music?" And he said, "The one on my music stand." I would say that my favorite show is the one I'm doing right now, and the 200th, where I have the opportunity to be more personal about the choices that I make, an agonizing process to winnow it down. But so I feel an affinity to these landmark shows. But there are so many other times that I have learned about a particular performance, a recording of something that I can't wait to share. So I look forward to this, and so each one is really special to me. A lot of research, a lot of thought, a lot of planning goes into what ends up on the air. A hard question, but I couldn't narrow this down to one, and each of these is representative of the many others that aren't represented. But I point out two. One is a recording of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony from 1915, conducted by Artur Nikisch, the great Hungarian conductor. And this man was a superb musician. Everyone who ever worked with him said that he was absolutely extraordinary. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about his history. He was born in 1855. So for context, he was born 28 years after Beethoven died. He was 14 when Berlioz died. So in his lifetime, living were Berlioz, Wagner, Tchaikovsky, Brahms, and Verdi, among many others, but the really big ones. It's just incomprehensible, thinking of today, to know that these giants were alive, and he absorbed all that. The other one I'm sharing via YouTube is a very unique historical moment, and it was a live matinee performance of the Boston Symphony in Symphony Hall, conducted by their then music director Eric Leinsdorf on November 22nd, 1963. And during the concert, perhaps at intermission, perhaps between pieces, Leinsdorf got word that President Kennedy had been assassinated. And what you'll hear on this YouTube is he comes out to the audience and he announces that there's a wire service report that the president has been assassinated. This is pre-social media, pre-cell phones. No one in that audience knew. And the gasp that you hear is just unbelievable, because Kennedy was a Boston guy. So many of the people and the women in that audience had campaigned for him. This is their first notice of this tragedy, and Leinsdorf announces that they're going to play the funeral march from Beethoven's Eroica, at which point there's another gasp and sob from the audience, and then they play it. It's impossible to pick my favorite recording of all time, but one I would list is Richard Strauss' Four Last Songs with Elizabeth Schwarzkopf and the Berlin Radio Symphony conducted by George Sell. The roommate that I mentioned, had this record, introduced me to it. And it is an extraordinary piece of music. It is one of those pieces where when it begins, I have the sense that the music is going on in some other realm and a door has just been opened and we're just catching this thing. It feels like a moving stream. And it's so extraordinary. It really was written at the very end of Richard Strauss's life. And so I imprinted on this particular performance. She actually recorded it twice. She recorded it before in mono with Otto Ackermann conducting. And I know that she liked that recording. But this one is the one that just the comment, because this is in stereo, and the combination of the factors in this particular recording just are so special to me. And I had the chance to meet Elizabeth Schwarzkopf at a record signing at one of those nice record stores in Washington. And here is her signature on this record. You know, as with record signings, you know, you spend 90 seconds, 2 minutes with the person. But just to have the opportunity to thank her for this and to get her signature on this record, it's one reason I've kept this one over the years. You know, planning this was agonizing. I ended up with maybe 30 things, and I couldn't put that many on. But in narrowing the list, what I realized after the fact is that I ended up quite unintentionally, and this happens from time to time on the show, quite unintentionally with some connections. For instance, there are 2 female vocalists on the show, very, very different. Very different. Both remarkable in their own ways, but one an operatic diva, one a fantastic folk singer. Thank you for listening to this short video, and thank you very much for listening to From the Archives.